Cabin 12 sat at the edge of the lake, up in northern Idaho pines. Just a wooden dock, a tin roof, and a view that could stop time. Every summer since I was a boy, Daddy'd take me there in June. We'd fish till dark and tell old stories beneath the mountain moon. And life got busy like it always does. Jobs, bills, and growing old. Years slip by without noticing, like leaves before the cold. Daddy called every now and then, son, we oughta head up there. I'd always say, maybe next summer, thinking there'd always be one to spare. But the light in cabin 12 still burns inside my mind, like a beacon from the years I lost, calling me back through time. You think forever's waiting on you, till one day it slips away, and all that's left is a porch light shining on the memories that remain. Last October, we buried Daddy under a hill beside the church. And a week later, I found his keys in the pocket of his work shirt. So I drove north through the mountains alone, past rivers running cold and clear. And when I reached that old cabin porch, I had to stop and wipe my tears, 'cause the light in cabin 12 still burns inside my mind, like a beacon from the years I lost, calling me back through time. You think forever's waiting on you, till one day it slips away, and all that's left is a porch light shining on the memories that remain. Inside I found his tackle box, his coffee mug beside the chair, and a note that simply read, glad you made it here. I don't know when he wrote those words, but somehow they found me right on time. Yeah, the light in cabin 12 ain't just glowing by the lake, it's every chance we get to love before it's gone someday. Now every June I bring my son, and we fish beneath those pines, while the evening settles on the water, and the stars begin to shine. And when cabin 12 lights up at dusk, I swear Daddy's still there somehow, smiling from that old porch swing, watching over us now.
Radio crackled just past midnight on Route 84 through New Mexico. My headlights painted silver lines across a desert no one seemed to know. I'd spent 10 years hauling freight trailers, sleeping more in truck stops than at home, watching birthdays through a phone screen, always somewhere down the road. That night a song came through the static, one my little daughter used to sing back when she was 5 years old. Thought I could do anything. I pulled over by an old gas station, under a buzzing neon light, and for the first time in forever, I sat alone and cried. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before, made me realize what all these miles had really cost me over time. You can chase a paycheck coast to coast, cross every state from south to north, but some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. By sunrise I was heading east toward Oklahoma and home again, past windmills turning in the distance, past towns I'd only passed through then. When I pulled into our gravel driveway, my daughter ran out through the yard. She was nearly 16 by that summer, and suddenly I saw how much I'd missed. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before, made me realize what all these miles had really cost me over time. You can chase a paycheck coast to coast, cross every state from south to north, but some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. Now I still drive, but not for weeks on end. Got a local route close to town. Sometimes success looks a whole lot different than the dreams you started out with. Yeah, that radio on Route 84 changed what I was living for, turned a lonely highway into a sign, pointing me back to
to my life. Now every night when I pull in the drive and see that porch light shining warm, I thank God for one old country song and a radio on Route 84. If some roads take you far away, just to show you where you belong.
There's a handmade quilt on Grandma's porch, folded on that old porch swing, stitched together from scraps of denim, Sunday dresses and wedding rings. Every patch has got a story, every thread's been pulled with care, and if you sit there long enough, you can almost hear them in the air. That faded red piece came from Grandpa's shirt, the one he wore out in the hay. The little blue square was Mama's dress on her graduation day. There's a bit of lace from Aunt Louise and army green from Uncle Ray, all sewn together through the years, so nobody fades away. Like that quilt on Grandma's porch, we're all pieces of something more, woven through the laughter and the hurt, through every blessing and every storm. Time may pull us different ways, and miles may spread us far apart, but love keeps stitching us together like a quilt across the heart. Last Thanksgiving, the whole family came from Dallas, Tulsa, and Tennessee. Kids ran circles through the yard, just like we did back in '93. Grandma sat there on that swing with silver hair and gentle eyes, smiling at 4 generations beneath that golden of something more, woven through the laughter and the hurt,
keep stitching us together like a quilt across the heart. Now the porch sits quiet these days since we laid Grandma down to rest, but that old quilt still catches sunsets like she's holding all of us close. Yeah, that quilt on Grandma's porch still tells stories without a word of farmers, soldiers, mothers, dreamers, and every lesson that we learned. And when the evening shadows fall and the whippoorwill starts to sing, I wrap it around my shoulders sometimes and feel the love she left in everything. Yeah, some people leave this world behind, but their hands stay in the seams.
There's a pair of work boots hanging from the old water tower just outside a town called Red Oak, Oklahoma. Faded leather, cracked and worn, swinging in the prairie wind since before I was born. As a kid I'd ask my daddy every time we drive by, why's nobody taking those boots down from the sky? He'd just grin and say, one day you'll understand. Then he'd shift that old truck into gear and head across the land. Years later at 17, I learned the story true about a man named Caleb Ross that only old-timers knew. He worked every ranch for 50 miles around, fixing fences after storms when they came crashing down. One summer brought a wildfire racing through the plains, the kind that turns the daylight orange and makes grown men pray. When the flames jumped Miller Creek and headed straight for town, Caleb stayed behind to help while everybody else got out. And those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. For 20 hours straight he worked with volunteers, digging lines and moving cattle through smoke and fear. The fire finally turned away just north of County Road 9, and every family made it out with a little luck and time. The next morning when the danger passed and the sky turned blue, the town gathered at the diner trying to figure out what to do. The mayor climbed a ladder with Caleb standing near and tied those old work boots high above the never liked attention, never made a speech or boast. Said I only did what anybody would have done. But everyone knew better, 'cause when fear was running wild, he chose to stay and fight, while others ran for miles. So the shoes by the water tower still catch the evening sun, watching over fields of wheat and children out having fun. And every new generation asks why they're hanging there. Then somebody tells the story, and Caleb's still with us somewhere. Yeah, those shoes by the water tower still dance in the prairie air. I saw her standing by the gas station out on Highway 84. A summer storm was rolling in, thunder shaking the store. She held a cardboard coffee cup, hair dancing in the wind. And something in that moment made the whole world slow again. I offered her a ride to town before the clouds broke loose. She laughed and said, only if you're playing something good with roots. An old country song came through the speakers, crackling low. And somewhere between two verses, I forgot where I was going. We spent that Friday driving roads that barely had a name, crossing little county bridges while the sky poured down like rain. She told me about Georgia and the dreams she left behind. I told her how I'd built these walls one heartbreak at a time. The windshield wipers kept the beat as evening settled in, and every mile beside her felt like a place I'd never been. Not because the road was new, but because she made it shine like sunlight breaking through a storm I'd carried for a long time. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town, like a melody drifting from an old FM. And I fall in love all over again. She turned gray skies into gold somehow, made forever feel like right now. Every drop that hits this roof tonight still whispers her name in the rain outside. 3 years later by the river, where the willow shadows sway, I got down on one knee at sunset as the daylight slipped away. She cried before I asked the question, said yes before I spoke, and the river carried echoes through the Tennessee smoke. Now there's a photograph beside our bed from that summer stormy day. Two young hearts beneath the station sign while the clouds rolled away. Sometimes life arrives so quietly, you almost miss the sign. Then one unexpected moment changes everything inside. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town, like a melody
never finds her hair, I'll still thank those storm clouds rolling in for leading me right there. So let the rain keep falling down across these fields outside our town. Every drop's a memory I can't replace of the day heaven put her in my way. She turned a passing storm into a lifetime, turned a lonely road into a finish line. And every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain. Yes, every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain.
On a gravel road in northern Montana where the winters cut like glass, there stood a one-room general store that somehow still managed to last. The sign was faded, the floorboards grown, the coffee pot stayed warm, and folks stopped in for more than feed whenever there was a storm. Old Miss Evelyn ran the place since 1979. She knew every kid, every ranch, every hard and troubled time. But what folks talked about the most was a rusty iron key hanging from a nail above the door for everybody to see. Nobody locked their houses much back when the town was young, but times changed like the weather and trust grew harder to come by. Still that key stayed hanging there through every passing year, and if you asked Miss Evelyn why, she'd smile and say it's here. For the day somebody needs it more than pride will let them say. For the day a soul gets stranded and can't find another way, then she'd pour another coffee and go back to her routine, leaving folks to wonder what she really meant. That's the key above the door for the lost and the worn, for the hearts carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. Then came the blizzard of '08, the worst anybody knew. Wide walls of snow swallowed fences, trucks, and every familiar view. A ranch hand named Miguel got caught 30 miles from town. His engine quit, his radio died, and the temperature kept dropping down. By pure luck, he found the store near midnight in the storm. The windows dark, the streets deserted, not another soul around. But there beside the entrance, hanging where it always had been, was that rusty iron key and a note tucked underneath. It said, if you're reading this tonight, come inside and get warm. There's soup in the freezer, blankets in the back room. Pay it forward when you can. That's the key above the door for the lost and the worn, carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. The next spring folks gathered around and asked Miss Evelyn why. She said, my daddy taught me something before the day he died. He said, kindness ain't kindness if it waits for recognition. The best things people do are usually done unseen. Now the key above the door still hangs where it hung before, and travelers tell stories about what that little town stands for. Not the mountains or the cattle, not the rivers running wide, but the simple faith that somebody will help you through the night. Yeah, the key above the door still leaves a light behind.
Miles outside of Tucson, my old Chevy coughed and died on a lonely stretch of desert highway, under 100 miles of sky. The radio faded into static, the sun sank red behind the hills. I kicked the tire and laughed at my luck as the evening air turned still, and a dusty Jeep pulled off the shoulder. A woman stepped out with a smile. She said, looks like that truck's had enough. Mind if I stay a while? She knew engines better than I did, had grease stains on her hands, and while we were beneath that fading light, I forgot all my broken plans. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up when the earth was dry. Like Arizona rain, we found a roadside cafe open late, just past an old gas station sign. Talked until the waitress stacked the chairs and the stars took over the night. She told me she'd been running too from a life that didn't fit. Funny how two strangers on a highway can find exactly what they missed. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up when the earth was dry. Out of nowhere, cool and wild, changing everything in a
rolled in with desert clouds like Arizona rain. The next morning brought a thunderstorm, dark clouds drifting across the plain. She laughed and pointed at the horizon, said, "Guess somebody knows our names." And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. Like Arizona rain in July, you turned a dead-end road into a new life, a broken truck into a story, and a lonely heart into something alive. Now every summer when the monsoons roll and thunder echoes through the canyons again, I thank the heavens for that desert road and the day you came. Like Arizona rain. Yeah, some blessings don't fall twice, but one good storm can change your life. Rode into Cedar Creek at 10:30 with a rusted duffel bag and a past full of sin. The church bell rang through the Alabama air like it still remembered a boy who grew up there. Mama's porch light glowed at the end of the lane. Same white swing, same window pane. I stood in the gravel with my boots in the dust, wondering if this town still had room for us. 10 years gone chasing city neon signs, trading quiet sunsets for overtime. Lost a good woman somewhere along the way, missed birthdays and Christmas Day. Daddy's old toolbox sat beside the barn, covered in rust but still holding strong. That's when I learned what I'd been running from. A man ain't rich if he's got no one. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine without the city lights, back to the roots I left behind. I thought freedom lived somewhere far away, down endless highways I could never stay. But every road I took led me to see home was waiting back in Cedar Creek for me. Now the wheat fields dance in the evening wind, and the boy I was is alive again. Mama laughs while the coffee brews, talking about all the things I used to do. The scars are there, but they don't define every wrong turn shaped this life of mine. And when the sun drops low beyond the trees, I finally feel a little peace. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine without the city lights, back to the roots I left behind. I thought freedom lived somewhere far away, down endless highways I could never stay. But every road I took led me to see home was waiting back in Cedar Creek for me. The miles don't disappear, they become part of your soul. Every broken mile marker helped me find the road. And the man looking back in that old truck glass ain't the same young fool from the past. I'm back to Cedar Creek, where the church bells ring, where the river keeps telling the same sweet thing, where forgiveness grows like summer rain, washing years of hurt away. I spent a lifetime searching for what I couldn't see. Turns out home was the thing that rescued me. And under these Alabama stars tonight, I'm finally where my heart belongs.
The windmill on Miller Road still turns above the field, just like it did back in '98 when life felt strong and real. Dad would wake before the sunrise, coffee in his hand, and I'd ride shotgun in that tractor across the Kansas land. We talked about the weather and the price of grain that year. He never spoke in big words, but somehow everything was clear. Said, son, a man ain't measured by the money that he makes. It's the promises he keeps and the burdens that he takes. I was 19 when I left that town, chasing city lights. Thought the Great Plains were too small for the dreams inside my mind. Built a business in Missouri, bought a house in wartime. But success can feel like failure when your roots are running dry. Then one cold November morning, my sister called in tears, said, you better come on home now, Dad's been fighting hard for years. I stared out at that office glass and watched the traffic flow, and for the first time in forever, I knew exactly where to go. So I drove through the midnight rain, past every mile of pride and pain, back to the fields where I learned my name, where the wind
turning slow, like the hands of time I used to know. And every lesson that my father gave still stands like steel above the waves. The hospital room was quiet when I walked through the door. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen, but his eyes were strong once more. He smiled and said, "You made it, son," then pointed through the glass toward the winter fields outside, where the snow was falling fast. We didn't talk about regrets or all the years gone by, just watched the clouds move over Kansas beneath the fading sky. He squeezed my hand and whispered low, "The farm will need your care." And in that simple moment, I knew my future waited there. So I drove through the midnight rain, past every mile of pride and pain, back to the fields where I learned my name, where the wind still sings across the plains. That old windmill keeps turning slow, like the hands of time I used to know. And every lesson that my father gave still stands like steel above the waves. Spring came early that next year. The wheat rose tall and green. Sometimes I still hear his voice carried on the prairie breeze. And when the sunset paints the sky in shades of gold and red, I tip my hat toward Miller Road and thank the man who led. Now I walk those fields at dawn, though the years keep moving on. The windmill turns above the land, like my father's weathered hands. Every season comes and goes, every child eventually knows the richest things we'll ever own are the people who call us home. That old windmill keeps turning slow, and every time I see it blow, I know the roots I almost lost were worth far more than what they cost. Bought an old farmhouse outside of Lexington, white paint peeling off, porch leaning toward the sun. The realtor said it's been empty near 30 years or more, the kind of place where memories still creep through every floor. I spend my Saturdays fixing boards and patching cracks, pulling down old wallpaper nobody wanted back. Then one rainy afternoon, behind a bedroom wall, I found a faded envelope that looked like it survived it all. The paper smelled of dust and time, the ink was turning brown. It started to whoever finds this, if this house is still around. It was written by a farmer's wife in 1953 to a child she was carrying, but knew she'd never see. She wrote about the dog they had, the willow by the creek, how his father sang while working and prayed before he'd sleep. She said, if life gets hard someday, don't let bitterness take a root. strongest hearts are often grown where storms have passed on through. And I read every word by the light of a lamp, like a voice reaching out through the years and the dust, from a woman I'd never know, in a world long gone away, still finding a way to say, hold on to the people you love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. Couldn't stop thinking about that letter for days, so I started digging through records, old archives and names. Turns out she passed that same year, before her son was born, and he grew up in that farmhouse where she never saw him grow. The boy became a teacher and lived into his 80s, raised 3 daughters of his own, and left behind a family. I tracked one granddaughter down in Bowling Green one night, and when she read her grandmother's words, she broke down and cried. She read every word by the light of her phone, like a hand reaching out from a place she'd never known, from a woman she'd only seen in a picture on the wall, still answering a call to hold on to the people you love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. There's 100 ways to leave your mark, most of them won't make the news. Sometimes forever starts with paper and the truth you choose to leave behind. The house still stands beside the willow, the creek still runs the same, and now that letter rests inside a frame where no one will forget her name. Yeah, I keep those words beside the door, where I can read them when life gets hard, a reminder that we're all connected by the stories in our hearts. And long after these walls are gone, long after I'm gone too, maybe somebody else will find a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind. Yeah, a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind. There's a faded blue suit on the clothesline today, dancing in the Carolina breeze. Mama pinned it up at sunrise, right beside the bed sheets and the leaves. Most folks drive right past our farmhouse, never think twice what they see. If that old suit's got 40 years of family history, Daddy wore it when he married Mama in a church out by Miller Creek. Wore it when he held my sister, just a baby, 3 weeks old and asleep. He wore it every Easter Sunday and every funeral in town. If somebody needed help or prayer, that blue suit showed up around. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Last winter we laid Daddy to rest. The church bell echoed through the pines. The pews were full of neighbors. Some drove for hours just to arrive. Afterward, Mama couldn't bear to lock that suit away. So every spring she hangs it out and lets the sunlight touch those days. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Now my little boy asks questions. Why's that jacket hanging there? And I tell him, son, that's what love looks like when a good man spins it everywhere. That Sunday suit on the clothesline still sways beneath the southern sky, like a quiet kind of legacy that never really says goodbye. And every time the wind catches it, I can almost see him grin, 'cause the best parts of a father's life are stitched beneath our skin. Yeah, that old blue suit keeps teaching us, even now after he's been gone. The auction sign went up in June beside the county road, right where my granddad carved his name in a cedar fence post. 80 years of Oklahoma dirt, 3 generations deep,
was gonna leave our family when that auctioneer would speak. The drought had hit us hard that year, then harder still the next. Bank notices stacked on the table like a pile of unpaid debts. I watched my father stare across those fields of dying grain, like a captain watching helpless while his ship sank in the rain. By auction day the whole town came, pickups lined the lane, neighbors leaning on the fences. Underneath the sky of gray, the tractors stood like soldiers, waiting for a final call. And every tool inside that barn held memories on its walls. The auctioneer climbed on the trailer, cleared his throat and smiled, started reading numbers fast, while Mama held back tears. And from the crowd old men stepped up, folks I'd known my whole life through, and one by one they started doing something nobody expected them to do. When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. Mrs. Parker bought the combine that her husband used to run. The sheriff bought the cattle gates, the preacher bought a gun, not for keeping, just for saving what we thought was gone for good. Every bid became a promise written where hope once stood. Then old Hank Wilson raised his hand for the final piece of land. Silence fell across the crowd as he made his stand. He bought the acreage outright and turned toward my dad and said, "This farm belongs to your family. That's all that needs be said." When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. The rain arrived 3 days later, rolling in across the plains, like heaven heard the voices of folks carrying each other's pain. Some things grow better than wheat fields, some things run deeper than roots. And when the world starts breaking, there's people that pull you through. Now every year when harvest comes and combines roll beneath the sun, and I hear that auction bell again, echoing across the wind, not as a sound of losing ground, but proof that love still gathers round. And if this farm outlives my days, I'll thank that town in 1,000 ways. Yeah, the auction bell still rings somehow, and every golden harvest now.
There's a pair of worn-out cowboy boots still sitting by the back screen door, covered in dust from 1,000 mornings, like they're waiting to walk once more. They cross the fields of western Kansas, through drought and rain and harvest time, and every scuff upon that leather marks a chapter of a life. My older brother wore those boots the first day he took over the farm, when Daddy's shoulders couldn't carry all the weight of keeping us strong. He gave up college, gave up freedom, stayed behind when he could have gone, while the rest of us chased our futures. He kept this family moving on. Those boots by the door tell a story of sacrifices nobody sees, of early mornings, broken fences, and hands worn down by duty. Yeah, heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear dust and dreams, and leave behind a trail of footprints for the rest of us to follow clean. Last spring we laid him in the churchyard, beneath the cottonwood on the hill. The whole town showed up that Sunday, and somehow the world stood still. Mama cried into my shoulder as the church bell softly rang, and all I could think about was how much one quiet man had changed. Those boots by the door tell a story of sacrifices nobody sees, of early mornings, broken fences, and hands worn down by duty. And dreams, and leave behind a trail of footprints for the rest of us to follow clean. Last week my nephew slipped them on, though they're still 3 sizes too large. He smiled and said, "One day I'll wear these." And I felt something in my heart. Yeah, those boots by the door keep speaking
like his father did before. A new chapter will begin again, with those boots by the door. Yeah, some legacies aren't written in stone. They're waiting by the door at home.
The station clock stopped working years ago. Just hangs there crooked in the Tennessee cold. But every Friday night at 9:30, that old freight train still rolls by. I sit on the bench where we carved our names, back when forever sounded easy to say. The paint's all peeling from the depot walls, but some memories never fade at all. You left this town in the summer of '99, chasing California dreams and city lights. I stayed behind with a mechanic's wage, fixing engines while the years turned pages. Folks said I'd forget you after all this time, but they never saw those blue-green eyes, or heard the promises we whispered low as that midnight whistle echoed through the hills. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you come and go inside my mind, rolling through the dark of memory, leaving old sparks behind. Every whistle sounds like your goodbye. Every rail still carries your name. No matter how many years roll by, my heart still waits beside that train. Last October, I got a handwritten note, no return address, just a familiar stroke. It said I'd be passing through next Friday night. If you're there, maybe we'll make things right. I read those words 100 times or more, standing in my garage by the open door, wondering if fate still worked that way, or if some dreams arrive too late. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you come and go inside my mind, rolling through the dark of memory, leaving old sparks
headlights cut through the mountain mist. The whistle cried across the ridge. Then I saw you step down from that rail car door, just like the girl I loved before. A little older, a little warm, but smiling like she finally come home. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you came back through the night, rolling out of all those lost years, and somehow made them right. Now the whistle sounds like hope again, not a ghost I can't outrun. And every Friday when that train rolls through, it reminds me love ain't done. Yeah, some hearts keep holding on till the last train finally brings you home.
Met her at exit 17 on a Sunday morning drive at a roadside farmer's market just outside of Caroline. She was selling jars of honey from her granddad's old beef farm, with sunlight in her brown hair and wildflowers in her arms. I stopped to buy a mason jar and head on down the road, but we got to talking about the weather and the places we called home. An hour slipped away like dust drifting through the breeze, and somehow that little roadside stand felt like where I was meant to be. The next week I came back again, pretending I needed more honey stacked up in my kitchen from the visits before. She laughed and called me out on it, said you ain't hard to read, then handed me a lemonade and pulled up a chair for me. By August we were dancing at the county fair at night, beneath the string of colored bows glowing soft and bright. The band played an old two-step while stars filled up the sky, and I knew right then I didn't want another goodbye. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen but somehow always dreamed, like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's a steady kind of love that stays, and every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. Now there's a porch swing by the farmhouse where we watch the evening fade, and a little girl who runs around the yard chasing butterflies all day. The honey stand still opens every weekend in the spring, and folks still stop to buy a jar and hear the old bees sing. Sometimes I'll catch her smiling when she thinks I'm not aware, and I swear she's just as beautiful as that first morning there. Funny how a simple stop can change a whole life's course, like turning down a road you almost passed before. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen, but somehow always dreamed. Like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's a steady kind of love that stays. And every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. People talk about forever like it's some impossible thing, but forever's just 1,000 little moments in between. A cup of coffee on the porch, her hand reaching for mine, the ordinary things that make a life shine. Yeah, she feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like the sweetest little blessing I never saw coming, like a song the radio plays exactly when you need a reminder that the best things arrive quietly. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's the steady kind of love that stays. And after all these years, she still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17.
The doctor shook his head last April, said take it easy, slow things down. But my granddad just smiled and tipped his cap, looked out across that Oklahoma ground. 82 years in those same fields, watching seasons come and go. He said a man don't quit on the land he loves till it's time for the Lord to call him home. We planted corn beneath the rainy sky, like we'd done since I was 10. His hands were worn like old leather gloves, but they still knew where to begin. Every sunrise found him on that tractor, rolling slow through rows of green, teaching me lessons he never wrote down, in ways only farmers mean. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season hearing that meadowlark call, one more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to
standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart like one more harvest before the dark. October came with amber fields waving, the biggest crop we'd seen in years. We worked side by side through the cool morning air, laughing louder than our fears. Then one November Sunday morning, he passed away in his favorite chair, with harvest dust still on his boots, and peace resting everywhere. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season hearing that meadowlark call. One more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart like one more harvest before the dark. Now every spring, when the fields awaken and fresh green rises from the earth, I swear I see him right in those horizons, smiling at what his life was worth. Just one more harvest, that's all he asked. Not riches, not glory, just time that lasts. To watch the wheat bend beneath the sky, and hold the ones he loved nearby. Now I carry on where his story ends. Through every season the good Lord sends, and when the sunset settles on those plains, I thank him for one more harvest again.
The scoreboard lights were flickering above the 50-yard line. October wind rolled through the stands on a cold Nebraska night. I sat alone on the top row where I used to hear them cheer. Now the bleachers felt a little bigger with every passing year. There was a time I wore that jersey with my number on the back. Thought Friday nights would last forever underneath those stadium lamps. But life moves faster than a fastball, stronger than your plans. One day you're chasing glory, next day you're shaking working hands. Now I punched the clock at sunrise at the grain mill by the tracks. Got 2 kids who wear my old cleats and a mortgage on my back. The mirror shows a little gray where the dark used to be, and the dreams I thought I'd lost are staring from the stands at me. My oldest boy ran on to the field wearing number 23. Same nervous smile I used to hide before the referee's whistle blew for me. And suddenly I understood what all those years were for. Some victories arrive much later than the ones you're keeping score. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The game was tied in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left to play. My boy threw a pass downfield and the whole town lost its mind that day. The crowd erupted like thunder rolling across the plains. But what hit me harder was the pride running through my veins. Afterward we drove home slowly beneath the starry sky. He talked about the winning play while I just smiled and drove. Because someday he'll leave this town and chase a dream beyond these roads. And when he does, I hope he learns the thing I finally know. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The wheat turns gold and falls away, winter comes and spring returns again. The years keep rolling like a train, but every season leaves a gift behind. And when the final whistle blows, I won't remember every score, I'll remember who was standing there when I walked through every door. So give me one more season of ordinary days, one more sunrise shining through the window's dusty haze, one more Sunday church bell echoing through the air, one more chance to tell my family just how much I care, one more season of memories still waiting to be made, one more season watching children slowly find their way. And when the good Lord calls me home beyond these fields of gold, I'll thank him for the seasons more than anything I own. I was 23 and reckless, working shrimp boats off the coast. Thought I had forever waiting, thought a young man couldn't lose much. She ran the bait shop by the harbor, the salt wind tangled in her hair. Every morning she'd wave me out, standing on that weathered pier. Then came September's angry waters, black clouds rolling from the sea. The radio warned all vessels, turn around immediately. But pride can be a dangerous compass when you're trying to prove you're strong. I pushed farther into open water, and before long, everything went wrong. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the waves were high as mountains and hope was hanging by a thread, the light kept reaching through the darkness till it led me back instead. The engine died around midnight and the sea threw me around. I thought about her waiting on the shoreline, praying I'd be found. Then through the sheets of rain and thunder, a single beam broke through the black. I pointed my bow toward that light and somehow found my way back. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the waves were high as mountains and hope was hanging by a thread, that light kept reaching through the darkness till it led me back instead. That was 20 years ago this autumn. Now my hair's turning gray, and every time I pass that shoreline, I still bow my head and pray. Some lights are built from stone and steel, some shine inside a faithful heart, and both can save a drifting soul. When the world falls apart, yeah, the lighthouse at Cape Fear still stands against the passing years. And every time its beam sweeps by, it reminds me how close I came that night. I got the girl, we raised a family and built a life beside the sea. It all began with a light in the storm that refused to give up on me. Yeah, some miracles don't make the news, they just got a man back home. Main Street, Tennessee, late July heat. I was fixing up a Chevy across from Maple Street when I looked up from the engine and caught a glimpse inside a little bridal shop with lace hanging in the light. There she stood by the window with a tape measure in hand, pinning up a wedding gown, humming with the radio band. A strand of hair kept falling, she kept brushing it away, and somehow that simple moment stole my breath that day. For weeks I'd find excuses just to walk that side of town. Need a coffee, need some nails, anything to come around. She'd wave through the glass and smile every time we met, the kind that makes a man believe in things he ain't believed in yet. And then one Friday after closing, as the sun was sinking low, I finally crossed the street instead of letting another chance go. We talked until the courthouse clock struck 10:30, and before I drove away, I knew I'd see her again. She was the dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I traveled led me somehow to the dress in the window and the girl I fell into. 3 years later on a Sunday, church bells filled the air. The whole town gathered smiling as she walked down the aisle there. And hanging in the front display, where I first saw her stand, was the very dress she'd stitched herself with her own two hands. I watched her coming toward me through the tears in her eyes, and every prayer I'd whispered finally fell to life. Funny how forever started with a glance across the street and a man too shy to walk over and speak. She was the dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I traveled led me somehow to the dress in the window and the girl I fell into. Now there's a little girl sleeping upstairs tonight, with her mama's green eyes and her smile so bright. And sometimes when I lock up the garage after dark, I still look across Main Street and thank God where it all started. Yeah, she was the dress in the window, a simple moment nobody else would have seen. But some of the greatest love stories begin in places ordinary as can be. Now that old shop still glows every evening downtown, and every time her laughter lights around, I'm reminded that forever sometimes starts with a view of a dress in the window and a dream coming true. Out on the Carolina coast where the Atlantic meets the sand, there stood a lonely lighthouse built by weathered working hands. My daddy kept that beacon burning through every storm that came, while I dreamed of bigger cities and a life beyond the waves. Every night he'd climb those stairs with a lantern and a key, while cargo ships crossed dark horizons far beyond the sea. He'd say a light ain't measured by how far away it shines, it's measured by the lives it helps make it home alive. At 18 I left Hatteras with a suitcase and a plan, certain there was something greater waiting for me inland. I spent 20 years in boardrooms wearing polished shoes and ties, building things that look successful through everybody's eyes. Then one winter I got a call from a number I didn't know. The keeper's house was empty now, and Dad was gone. I flew back through a freezing rain to that familiar shore and found his boots beside the door, like he just stepped out once more. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and it took me half a lifetime to learn where I came from. You can chase every distant skyline underneath the sun, but some lights keep guiding you long after they're gone. Through the fog and through the storms, through every road I wandered on, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home. The town was planning to close the tower by the bay. Modern systems made it obsolete, or so the experts claimed. But as I walked those spiral stairs, I saw Dad's name carved deep beside 100 others who had kept watch over the sea. So I stood before the county board and made a different case. Said this lighthouse isn't concrete, steel and paint. It's every life that found the harbor when the ocean turned black, and somehow the whole room rose up and brought the old tower back. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and it took me half a lifetime to learn where I came from. You can chase every distant skyline underneath the sun, but some lights keep guiding you long after they're gone. Through the fog and through the storms, through every road I wandered on, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home.
home. Now every year on Father's Day, I climb those stairs alone, watch the beams sweep across the waves, and think about all I've come to know. The strongest men don't always build the tallest things you'll see. Sometimes they simply leave behind a reason to believe. Yeah, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and the older that I get, the more I understand. A good life ain't about the miles or money that you've won. It's about the people who become your guiding stars. Through the fog and through the stars, their lessons carry on. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home. Yes, his light still leads me home.
There's an old brass key above the kitchen door, hanging from a crooked nail since '74. Most folks never notice when they walk inside, but Grandpa said that key saved our lives. Back when Kentucky coal jobs disappeared and hard times settled in for years, bills piled high and hope ran low, like winter snow along the road. One December night, a stranger knocked, cold rain dripping from his coat. Said his truck broke down beyond the ridge and nowhere else was open. Grandma fed him beans and cornbread, Grandpa gave him a place to stay. Before he left the next morning, he quietly handed them that key. That key above the door reminds us you never know what kindness starts. One small act can change a lifetime, leave a mark upon a heart. When you're down to almost nothing and the world feels cold and far, sometimes grace shows up uninvited and leaves a light where darkness was. A month later, Grandpa lost his job and thought he'd have to leave the land. Then a letter came from Lexington, signed by the same stranger's hand. He owned a growing hardware company, needed someone he could trust. Said a man who helps a stranger in the rain is the kind of man I want. That key
change a lifetime, leave a mark upon a heart. When you're down to almost nothing, and the world feels cold and far, sometimes grace shows up uninvited and leaves a light where darkness was. Now every Christmas Eve we gather, kids and grandkids packed inside, and Grandpa's story gets retold. The snow drifts past the window light, that old brass key still catches candle glow, like a blessing frozen in time. Yeah, that key above the door reminds us the richest things can't be bought. A warm meal, an open doorway, and helping hands when hope is lost. The world keeps spinning faster, but some truths never get too old. You never know which simple kindness might come back 100-fold. So we leave that key right where it's been, above the door for all to see. A reminder that a stranger once arrived and changed our family.
There's a forgotten mining town tucked deep in Colorado hills, where the railway quit running and the clocks all learned to stand still. Most folks packed their lives in boxes when the silver dried away, but old Walter Green stayed behind and watched the years decay. Every evening at sundown he'd walk the empty street, past the boarded up hotel and the church without a priest. Then he'd climb the ridge above town where the cold winds always blew, and light a lantern by the tracks like he'd done his whole life through. The story went that 40 years ago his young son disappeared on a snowstorm night in January, the worst they'd seen in years. The boy had left to catch a train and never made it there. Nobody found no final words, just questions in the mountain air. People call it foolish hope, a wound that wouldn't heal, but Walter never missed a night, no matter how he'd feel. Through blizzards, floods, and summer heat, through every passing year, the lantern kept on burning bright for someone who might appear. And the last lantern in Black Creek still shines where the old rails meet, like a promise made that never broke, like a prayer rising through the smoke. When the whole world Then one October evening, when the aspens turned to gold, a stranger stepped off a freight train looking tired, gray and old. He stood beneath that lantern light with tears upon his face and stared toward the silent town like he recognized the place. Walter heard the footsteps coming down the gravel road. At first he thought the mountain wind was playing tricks again, but when the stranger softly said, "Dad, it's finally me," 40 years of sorrow broke like rain into the sea. And the last lantern in Black Creek still shined where the old rails meet, like a promise made that never broke, like a prayer rising through the smoke. When the whole world says let go, some hearts refuse to lose their hope. And the last lantern in Black Creek burned long enough to bring him home. No one ever learned the whole story, where the years had taken him away. Some mysteries belong to heaven, and some are better left that way. But every soul in that old town still talks about that autumn night, when hope outlived the hands of time and faith outshined the dark. Now the lantern's gone from Black Creek, the tracks lie quiet in their sleep, but the legend travels mountain winds through every valley, ridge and stream, that sometimes love keeps waiting long after reason says it's done, and sometimes one small light can guide a lost heart safely home. Yes, sometimes one small light can guide a lost heart